this right away.
He said, right? You're coming to cover my shirt.
Okay, let's get started. We have 5 speakers today, so we want to make sure we have time to hear all of them. Welcome to everybody. This is the presentations of the ENE 590 Individual Study project for this semester. Next week, we have the Explorers, the first-year students. Yes, and I'm proud of what they've been doing. So I understand we have 3 teams presenting next week. Announcements. Are there announcements from the ENE Graduate Student Association or the ASCE Student Chapter? Yeah.
There is an ASW event after this meeting in this room for an hour. If you want to stay, we'll have more snacks and we'll have a wonderful speaker.
It will be Nathan. Nathan organized the event, but I'll be here too. So stay at 4:30. We'll have a good time talking about mentoring, and it will be an interactive workshop. Okay, snacks today.
Oh.
Thanks. I don't seem to have the name of the snack person. Who brought the snacks today? Nick and Andrew. Nick and Andrew? Yay, thank you for snacks. Snacks here. Okay. I have attendance sheet. Please indicate your attendance, and we'll circulate that around the room. Even if you're not registered for the course, and even if you're not in engineering education, we'd like you to know where you're coming from, so that we know where people come from to attend the seminar. If you'd like to sign up to be on our mailing list, and who doesn't want more email, right? You can do that too.
Let's see if this works, BUNMI.
Today's talk is being broadcast.
Okay, it's working.
When people are using the rest of the computer.
No, but I could feel
And
it
now,
working.
we're going to go in reverse order by the order of the abstract. So the first speaker is JUAN ORTEGA-ALVAREZ, Becoming an Engineering Education Researcher, Opportunity, Choice, or Chance.
Thank you.
Okay, and I have a timer here on my cell phone. Each speaker has 7.5 minutes to the microsecond, and then 2 minutes for questions and change of speaker. Are you ready?
Thank you very much, Dr. Louis.
Very good. Juan.
Hi everyone, my name is ORTEGA-ALVAREZ, shorter for Juan, as you know. And my presentation today is on the independent study I did under the supervision of Professor Ruth Streveler on the evolution of the engineering education research community. So, okay, down. I think I got it. This is the outline of my short presentation. Without further ado, let's dive deep into the purpose. As I mentioned, my idea was to study the evolution of the engineering education research community, especially in the past 10 plus years. So that's actually nothing new. That has been looked at from different perspectives. This one here, for example, is big data analytics applied to publications, collaborations, grants. This has been explored by Dr. Madavan and colleagues. Well, results here are interesting and also challenging, but that's actually not what I am interested on. I'm focused more on this part, the scholars' experiences, how people experience that process of becoming an engineering education researcher. That actually has been looked at also from 2 perspectives. One is the systems approach by Dr. Robin Adams and Soder and colleagues. I only touched this one tangentially. I was more focused on the individual stories. And to look at that, this thing is tricky. We had data from basically these 2 sources. Semi-structured interviews of scholars that participated in some events that I will discuss later, and also this rather new technique of photo elicitation, which was considered appropriate given that we're asking participants to recall things that happened back in time. So this is something new that we're trying here. Okay, but when I wanted to look at this, I needed a lens. The first part has been examined thoroughly through the lens of communities of practice of Wenger and colleagues, this blue part over here. And for this new study, we looked through a new lens of Palmer's approach to change as a movement. Let's discuss those things briefly. Wenger, Snyder, and McDermott's model of communities of practice poses that there are 3 levels of membership in a community. Those at the core, well, you can see them there. The things that the people at the core are normally those more skilled and experienced people that support and foster the development of the community. So you really need this inward movement of people from the peripheral area to the core that requires training and support. The tenets of this model are the domain of knowledge, in this case engineering education, so practice and people. So the idea is that learning happens inside the community through interactions. It's not just isolated thing, it happens because of the interactions. Second framework, Parker's approach to change as a movement, try to explain change in big organizations or fixed structures by posing that change happens in 4 stages. Those are choosing integrity. Integrity, that's the moment when someone decided that they're not being, or they don't want to be afraid anymore of doing what they want to do. Then they go out and find support from corporate support, external support. They decide to go public with their ideas, and finally, and hopefully, they find this to be a rewarding path. They find that some rewards are in place for choosing that path. Okay, this encompasses my definition of choice for this presentation. Here you can see that both the communities of practice model and the second stage of Palmer's model encompass my definition of chance. What it means chance is to find the people and the resources when you need them. And then this part here is what I have called opportunity. That means that there are rewards there for choosing that path. Before looking at the 10 plus years, I wanted to look at how was this actually before that. And so I looked briefly at how was the story in the past century. That sounds like years ago, past century. And then my take on that is that a lot of this has to do with engineering, with teaching engineering, with improving one's engineering practice. And all the stories here, to me, related a lot to choice. People that actually moved away from their research path and decided to improve their teaching. Even though they were perhaps not prepared to do it, they decided to go there. But then when you look at the stories of these pioneers, and there is this Pioneers project that I encourage you to look at, very interesting, you see that chance is also there. These people also found the faults in the educational departments, psychology departments, that help them be better prepared to do this type of research. And some of them actually changed gears in the middle of the way. They moved from a technical background to an educational background. Now, in the past 10 years, we have experienced a lot of things that have called for higher standards in the way we do educational research. But that also has been accompanied by opportunities for people to acquire the new skills and the new knowledge they need. And those opportunities have been put there precisely by the core members of the community. So particularly, I would like to look, I looked at these 2 workshops here, the rigorous research in engineering education and the Institute for Scholarship on engineering education, led by Ruth Strebler and Robin Adams here, respectively. And those studies, since both workshops were built on the basis of community of practice, stories of chance are all over the place there. You can find them. But then when we use the other framework, Palmer, you see choice is also there. these people were not there just by chance. They were there because they wanted to be there. And that's what Dr. Adams defined like 8 years ago as intentional serendipity, or it was in the paper. Finally, opportunity. There was also stories of opportunity, but also actually in the contrary meaning of the word. These people felt like the reward system didn't really encourage them to be in this community. Those reward systems need to change. To finish, my questions are, if we already found that there are chances to take these people which are interested in becoming engineering and education researchers, and we provided the chances to do that, what would happen if we also put in place reward systems that make this a desirable path as opposed to a personal benefit? And how would that look like in the context of a country like mine, where engineering education research is just starting, but it's well regarded as any other type of research? Would that make change there? Basically, these things have come out as products of these studies. The communities of practice is in a paper about to be submitted. The Palmer's and photo illustration part is going to be submitted to AWE, and then this part of chance choice as an opportunity as as boosting each other is going to form my dissertation. Thank you very much to Dr. Streveler, Dr. Nicole Peterson, and Mel Schwab for the interesting conversation. If you have some burning questions, you can get me up.
We have 1 minute for change of speaker. James, you can get ready here. And questions for Juan?
In both questions
Yeah,
and
go
both
ahead.
answers.
Did you see any of your story as you were looking at the data? Did you see pieces of your experience in the data?
This is my experience. Yes. Part of the data that I said I can initially touch actually came from Dr. Adams' studies. They had a sample of international people, not US-based researchers, and all their stories had to do a lot with choice, because there wasn't even a community of practice in engineering education when they started to do it. I think that's kind of like how I feel at this point. Like my interest started just because I wanted to improve my teachers before I actually realized there was already a community that could help me get there.
Another very quick question with one word answer? Okay, thank you very much. Next, we have James Holly, Jr., Success Factors for Minority-Focused Engineering Program. Go ahead.
All right, hello everyone. As you said in my name, I'm a second-year student here at Purdue in engineering education, and we'll go ahead and get going. I just tried this. Okay. So, what is the purpose of this 5-module project? Essentially, research to practice. So, research a systematic review. There's a star. Oh, okay. Sure. There's an asterisk there, and I'll explain why that's there. Because I took principles from a systematic review and then actually do like the traditional systematic review. Going from there to communicating my results, both here and also to partners in this project, which would be MEP directors, the Minority Engineering Program directors here at Purdue, and then lastly, the NAMIPA, which is the National Association of Multicultural Engineering Program Administrators. That is a coalition of minority engineering program advocates across the country. So different universities have minority engineering programs. And the reason why I said the title was Minority Focused Engineering Programs is because not all of them are entitled Minority Engineering Program. Some are Diversity Engineering Program, some maybe even multicultural, things like that. So this program that focus on underrepresented minorities, which traditionally focus on 3 categories of students: Black, African American, Hispanic or Latina, and then Native Americans. So that's a group of, like I say, advocates, workers, directors, and what they do, or what the director here at MEP is trying to do, because he serves as the current leader of that group, is trying to create a model that all programs can follow. And so trying to collaborate with the engineering education program here as individuals who are doing engineering education research and things of that nature. How can we establish a model that other universities could look to and even practice, so that we can look across the board and say, this is what we're doing. This is what's happening. So with that, this is the process that I follow, like I say, a modified research structure, tradition, systematic review, The team, they come up with keywords. A researcher or a group of researchers go through literature or literature review in a systematic way, setting boundaries and things like that. For example, in mine, there was a timeline, primarily looking at resources, journals, books, and papers, primarily papers and conference papers, journal papers and conference papers that were published in the last 15 years. So that bounds your research. And then also, what didn't happen is not all of the team did the review, like primarily it was just me. So I did the research review, but I established keywords by working with the directors of the MEP program here, and then also just add, is this what you're looking for, and they also help shape the question. So keywords, again, not all programs are minority engineering programs. Some have started that way, and because of transition has changed, moved on to have other terms to express what they do. So you have diversity programs in College of Engineering, diversity engineering center, underrepresented minorities. Those are terms that I use. And the questions I was looking at are, what are important elements of a minority-focused engineering program? And then the second question was initially, what are traits of successful minority engineering programs? But that was changed to how is success defined. And so the first question is looking at, if you have a program, what needs to be the key components of that? It's talked about a lot, but different programs or different researchers phrase with the key components in different ways. So I basically try to say like cloud terms or coded terms that basically each of those address. And then how is success defined? I'll just say that for later because I like that part. So this is what I came up with. Generally, important elements of MEPs address cognitive and non-cognitive factors or areas. And cognitive being academic and non-cognitive being social. So the four on the left, cognitive intervention programs, that includes workshops on critical thinking, time management, just success or identity and things like that. Just different, well, not necessarily identity, that will fall into social, but like tutoring and things like anything that would help students improve their grade performance and also their academic transition into the college environment. And so that was the most prevalent trait of minority engineering programs that are successful. Summer bridge programs, these are programs that are conducted during the summer before a student would enroll as a freshman, whether 6 weeks, 10 weeks, or whatever the case may be. They come to a campus, they stay on campus in a residential hall, and they're basically given either like pre or training classes, so they need to improve their math skills, or basically an introductory case of what the math classes or science classes will be like once they enroll. And they help them transition and also builds community. Academic center, so here Minority Engineering Program has a specific space where students can come to study, work together, get tutored, or use computers, or even socialize. And so whether it looks like the one here, or just an open space that is there, whether it's a laboratory, this is also said to be useful. Undergraduate research experience. I limited it as that, but also it's included as like encouragement for graduate study. A number of minority engineering programs are trying to not only increase the presence of underrepresented minorities in undergrad, but also in the graduate spaces. And so they're trying to infuse that in the programs that they do by offering services to introduce students to the graduate application, help them understand what things they may want to study, and things of that nature. On the right, you have a number of things. Community, whether that's social gatherings, hosting events as a group that don't relate to the school, or whether it's just allowing people to be together to identify and talk and have discussions. Financial support, a lot of programs try to offer some type of scholarship. It may not cover the entire tuition, but at least some type of financial support to ease the burden that underrepresented minorities usually face. Counseling, this is, we say in third, but this usually means monitoring or advising. So monitoring is just checking in with the students on a regular basis. So whether it's weekly meetings, one-on-one meetings with the staff or administrator within the minority engineering program, just to see how the student is doing, but also advising them. Maybe they need, the student isn't doing well in the class, it'd be better if they drop the class and retake it, or maybe just being a listening ear and supporting them or hearing what's going on at home. Peer mentoring, so establishing situations where students are paired with higher level students, professional. So the rest are here, I'm short of time. The ones that are in gold, so again, these are things that are done by staff and administrators within minority engineering programs, but I put the things in gold to, I believe as engineering educators, these are things that we can do. engaging as faculty, so not just seeing people as like a number in the classroom, but building relationships with students. Undergraduate research experiences, so we had the Uprise program in engineering education, so encouraging students to participate and join the research team, and also professional awareness. You have a diverse group of people who come from different places, so just sharing your backstory and the different options that are available within engineering. So this is a lot to read here, I don't have time, but basically what I found is the way that programs are defined determine the type of program. The way that they define success determine how they ran the program. So some programs were just focused on the first year and students just getting good grades. Other programs focus on students enrolling in graduate school, and so they had a more longitudinal type of program. They focused and looked at the students through their second and third years. In other places, they just wanted to see students graduate. And so that determined how they set up their program and the number of things that they did within the program and how long they followed and how much they engaged with the students. And lastly, I'll go with this. So a lot of people may say, isn't this just a good experience for some students? Well, the things that you see are necessary for all students, but some they're more explicit than others. A lot of students aren't getting these things, and that's why they're more emphasized in the program. And then lastly, these are new things I hope to do. Sorry for going over.
Thank you, Jim. Well, I need your help. We have a little over a minute for questions. Yes,
well, that's the next step. So this was the first presentation, and then I have a separate presentation with SILVA. At the beginning, we talked about how this can be translated to the NEPA structure and what they do with them. But what I'm thinking is kind of serving like a measuring type of thing, like are we doing these things, and how well are we doing these things that I want to do it. But we'll see to be determined.
So are you following the work of Walt Lee and Denise Simmons at Virginia Tech?
Yeah, so I actually used one of their papers in this, and so I know they do a lot of, encouraging me, so I know he does a lot of work in that regard. So yes, it was certainly.
that's a short question.
Yeah.
A short answer question.
Yeah.
One more question. Okay, thanks a lot. Next, we have HIRA, Social and Cultural Capital.
I'm sorry, we'll start with the other one because they're just related. We'll start with the
Oh, start with the other one. Okay. HIRA has two. Okay, inquiry to democratizing education to co-working spaces, and then the social and cultural capital in primary and secondary.
Thank you, Dr. Louis. As everyone can see, I'm fairly excited to be here as I'm fashionably overdressed for this presentation. So to begin with, the first presentation that I'll be talking about is the inquiry in democratizing education through co-working spaces, which is an independent study project that I did with Dr. Morgan Hines over this fall. And the aim of this entire study was to look into how people are really excited about makerspaces, and there are people who think that they're the next best thing, and there are others who think that, oh, okay, I really don't know why makerspaces are so cool, or why is it just another fad, or what's the big deal about makerspaces. And so this is to identify the gaps and opportunities so presented that makerspaces give us for educational benefits. We took a three-pronged approach to this, and those are kind of like the three different spaces of inquiry that we went through. The first one being more of a cyberspace kind of literature review of how makerspaces are presented in different contexts. To begin with, we looked at the United States, and as you can see, largely taken up by maker media. Other things which include websites, blogs, there are books and manifestos being written, other miscellaneous things, and again, articles, as you can see, there are certain pro articles, and then there is like the big article by Debbie Chakra, Why I'm Not a Maker, and those are the negative articles in this space. The second being, so how do these spaces present themselves in different cultures? And so very quickly, so as you can see in China and India, there are actually government sanctions around makerspaces. In Spain and Morocco, we can see that they're not really owned by maker per se, but they have similar co-working spaces. And so that is how they're presenting themselves in different cultural spaces. The second line of inquiry was around the academic literature that is present in makerspaces and education. And just quickly here, there are initiatives that have been taken around libraries and museums, and there are certain possible measurement tools that people are talking about, but none really to like a conclusive end. And that's kind of what I'll talk about in a bit. And then there are theoretical roots, which everyone is acknowledging. And from the theoretical route, kind of. This is more of a scaffolding from the course that I took for Dr. Moore last semester on the theories of engineering thinking and development. And so how do many of our educational theories present themselves, and how can makerspaces possibly be places for these theories to present themselves? And so that is kind of Dr. Hines and my vision of how these theories can actually be presented in this space. The next thing which I go to is, so these are the three spaces that we kind of did a review in. And so there are these claims that people are making about how makerspaces can be used in educational environments. And so just very quickly, so I mean, there's work by stated around the constructivist learning laboratory, which is more historical, and then there are claims around how constructivism, outcome-based education, experiential learning, and Bruner's work on scaffolding, acquiring, and transfer all present themselves as great places, and makerspaces present themselves as great places for this work. However, what we noticed, and as noticed by many other people in the community, is that there is this gap. As you can see, this is the work being done, and those are the opportunities, but there seems to be this gap. And that is kind of what informs our future work. That is what informs our future work in terms of what are these gaps and how do they present themselves as opportunities. And as you can see, there's this overlapping research, practice, and policy kind of a scenario going on here. Everything from technology, the spaces, the sanctions, to the networks. And so, as the last thing that I'll say about this particular presentation is that what is required for this great space, which we believe, along with other pro-makerspace kind of advocates, is that there is work required in all those three spaces, and it would be great if that work could be done, and I hope that I could do some of that work along with my colleagues. And so I'm going to quickly jump into my next presentation here. And this probably wasn't the best idea to do this from my phone, but we'll jump in. And so the next presentation that I'll be talking about, which is social and cultural capital in, there we are, awesome. And so this is social and cultural capital in primary and secondary STEM education. This is another independent study that I took along with Dr. Jennifer DeBoer. And this started with the aim of seeing how, from a lens of the aspects of social and cultural capital, how do students get STEM opportunities per se. And this also is kind of motivated in my personal academic interests around makerspaces, and just kind of like stepping out of this box of this is all cool and awesome, and how does it work in the real world? And that's kind of what the motivation behind this study was. And so to quickly go over what all we did during the course of the semester, we spent a considerable part of the semester looking through some of the seminal work in this shared space of sociology and education. And so the particular fields that we went over were science and technology studies, social and cultural capital, vocational education, and tracking. And you can see some of the big readings out there, which further, again, this is also like a two-step process, that seems to be the number, and which kind of formed a framework, which I'll just talk about, informing further tensions and connections, as this is very sociological in nature. And then, very quickly, also about the maker movement, because one of the running themes which we can see in all of this is that there is unobjectivity which is associated to the value systems as we look at this from a sociocultural lens. So, looking at the framework very quickly, as you can see the central line there, that is, the society informs, constraints, opportunities, and perceptions, and further, and this is something, this similar work done by Oakes and Paula England on this, and how kind of those three things are related to each other. And the other literature on social cultural capital, and also other work in science and technology studies kind of inform what all goes into the society. And then there's work in policy, particularly by Kahn, which kind of informs those big boxes of utilitarianism and humanism. And so how is what being decided, and what all goes into the being of all of this. I highlighted the problem of transfer because that's something that's personally meaningful to me. I talk about tensions and connections in the next slide because I think that would be a better place to talk about it. But again, very quickly, there's tensions between individually and common broad-based education, tension between does society make technology or does technology make society? How should tracking be done? With the measurements of assessment, should be more larger, quantitative in nature, or more one-on-one between individuals. And so the implications for the maker movement is, as you can see, so what we tried to do was we looked at prototypical makerspaces and we saw, okay, so what implications can be looked at in a one-on-one way? And we realized that that's not possible because these lie on a continuum of sorts. As you can see, there's a continuum of policy, there's a continuum of learning, of education, and also just of the space. The social construction of technology or is the construction of society via the artifacts present in the space. And so to quickly talk about the two big takeaways, and that's the last thing I'm going to say, is that spaces can lie at any place in this continuum. And that is how the spaces exist as of now. And that does not necessarily, actually that does not mean that there is absolute value associated to any particular place in this continuum, and all of them present themselves as different opportunities. And that is kind of a so what takeaway from this rather large study that we. Thank you. Those are the references.
So we have a minute and a half. Jennifer, or Dennis can get set up. Questions for AVNEET?
Morgan. Not a deep question, but I really like the last continuum. So how do you think that relates to the things we did together?
Sure, yeah, that's actually pretty awesome. So, thank you for that.
She didn't tell me to ask that.
So, for example, when you look into the more cyberspace kind of, so how are these makerspaces presenting themselves in different places in the world, right? And so, if you look at, so there's a makerspace down in Louisville, which is the GE First Build makerspace, versus there is a makerspace, actually a fab lab in India, which is called the GENISSON, which looks more at helping rural youth. Well, 1+1, do something with their lives, and second, generate something for the community. And so the difference in these two makerspaces, if you purely look at it from a vocational, contextual kind of work versus a skill-based work. So what Vigyan Ashram does is that the way Vigyan Ashram is structured is that they look into what are the skills that we can build. They call them scientific skills and not engineering skills per se, but they look at what are the skills that we can develop in these youth that are coming to us in a way that they can go out and then use those skills in any which way possible to us. Versus the GE First Build makerspace, which is more like, okay, so what are the problems with usual technology that GE is building, and so that is more of a contextual kind of an environment. And similarly with other places that look at vocational education. So that's a quick example, but we could talk more about it later, Dr. Harris.
Thank you very much. Now we have GENISSON, COURTINHO, and identifying international graduate students' learning experiences in second language learning environments.
Oh, hello, I'm JENISSON. My advisor is Dr. Brophy. I will be presenting my work in progress, which I call Identifying International Graduate Students' Learning Experience in Second Language Learning Environment. So the main motivation for this study is my personal experience. So I am an international student, non-native English speaker. So when I came here, my level of proficiency was in an optimistic way intermediate. So before to come, I was really concerned in questions like, what if the most classes are lecture-based? How would I survive in this environment? How would I make sense of the class if my learning level my English learning level is low? And for my surprise, the most classes here are based on active learning strategies, but this also creates some challenges for us. For example, large group discussions are really hard to understand, to make sense. So this challenge us. But I've seen that here we have a normally heterogeneous classroom with people from different countries, cultures, languages, and these challenges both professors and students. Professors must design new learning environments to accommodate these new students' difference. And we as students, we have to develop new learning strategies to overcome the new challenge. So we have to learn content, but we have to face challenges caused by the language, culture, different challenges. Then, based on these reflections, I decided to investigate what are the international students' perceptions of this new learning environment. So, and also what kind of learning strategies these students develop to overcome difficulties. To do this, I will use phenomenology. So I will explain it later better. So some statistics. I think there is part of my screen that's. Well, I will continue. The title of the slides are not up here, but I think we can go there. So in 2013, around 900,000 international students have been studying in the U.S. They contributed with over $27 billion to the U.S. economy. And in this fall, here in the School of Engineering, we have around 1,800 international graduate students, and this represents around 58% of the total population of the School of Engineering. My research questions to answer the research questions are: what are non-native English-speaking international graduate students' perceptions of the classroom learning environment used in the School of Engineering, and what are the learning strategies developed by the students to overcome these groups? I did a little review trying to identify the characteristics of these students. This will help me in selecting the participants. And I have found that they face 3 different challenges. They are cultural difference, academic adjustment, and language. These 3 factors play an important role on the student's experience, not only related to learning, but the personal life experience. And especially related to language, we see that students say that language creates difficulties in grasping the content of in-classroom activities. They also feel difficulties in interacting with peers and professors, so this challenges both. We have found that also assessment is hard, so professors must struggle in designing new fair assessment to accommodate the students' different cultural language. So I have great experience with fair assessment here in the School of Engineering Education. I have seen that all of these factors contributes to undermining students' motivation. So finally, I found that the background in language and the level of proficiency also impact achievement and performance. And I found, for example, that there is correlation between TOEFL and GPAs, but among engineering students, this correlation is weaker compared with other domains, for example, social science. I have found also that the way in the people acquire the second language impacts their language processing skills. For example, children formally educated in the second language, they may face strong difficulties in language processing when they are adults. So there are findings about this. So I will, as my study aims to identify the different ways people perceive this experience or the different strategies they develop, phenomenography is more appropriate for this study. So I will use phenomenography. I will use an online survey to get the information from the students, international students. Then I will select these students trying to attend the principle of maximum variation. I will conduct the standardized open-ended interviews, and I'm planning also to do a pilot study here in the School of Engineering Education. This will help me to develop my skills for the final. 1 minute. Okay. Here are some examples of the interview protocol questions, user interview protocol. So I have questions related to trying to warm up the participant. So questions like, tell me about your path to Purdue. Then I will explore also the pedagogical approaches. questions like, tell me about your worst learning experience in terms of language issues, and tell me about your best learning experience in terms of language issues. And then also ask some questions are related to the learning strategies. Possible limitation, the main limitation for me is called GENISSON, so I have a strong bias, so I'm non-native English speaker and my experience can bias the experience, so I have some measures to reduce this. The first one is, as I am aware, I can try to bracket so the bias. So it's a very conscious process to reduce bias. And we have also 2 additional researchers. They are native English speakers. They will help me to review the interview protocol and improve. They will participate in the data analysis. So, and also the pilot student will help me in tracking delay. So my learning in this process, the first one is I'm not alone. There are lots of international students facing the same problems, the same challenges, or even greater. Also, theory informs all stages of qualitative study. I confess that when I started here, I was not so confident in qualitative study. I think many of our colleagues, when we read the initial paper in qualitative study, we were, oh, I can't believe in this. Now, I think I understand. Phenomenography is different than phenomenology. I had this misconception at the very beginning. And there is a science behind the design of interview protocol. I was also planning, I will design these questions, ask whatever I want, but that's not the point. And I'm playing with IRB application. My main takeaway is sense of belonging. So now I start to feel that I'm part of the community of researchers. Before that, I was part of the educational space. Also, I knew how to design a course, how many different learning theories, but now I start to learn how to conduct research. Thank you very much.
We take one question while BUNMI is coming up here. Okay, go ahead.
So why study students at Purdue?
Because I'm here in the second.
So do you think? So how do you plan? Like, how will that inform how you make inferences from your results?
Okay.
Yeah, how will that inform?
Basically, my idea is, even though with these language issues, I have seen that most students are really well succeeded. So this means that they need to develop good learning strategies, and learning strategies can be taught. So we can taught other people, or kids, for example. I associated my difficulties with some low socioeconomic status students when they try to make sense of the classroom, and that information is difficult to make sense. And so I compared some students I had when I was professor for low socioeconomic status students in my sense. Sometimes I was, what does this professor is saying? What is saying? And it was really difficult because the information comes late, sometimes wrong, sometimes missed because we cannot translate. So this promotes a delay in the learning process, and classroom-like active learning helps us to make sense basically just in time. Instead of going home and try to learn in the books, we can make sense with peers and with colleagues. So I think the results of these studies can support new studies.
So my thought was just the context is good. There's cultural context that would be part of the interview.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Speaker for today is BUNMI BABAJIDE. She has 2 things to talk about. One on scholastic writing, one on comparing university and engineering process to rotational onboarding programs in the industry. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks to my other cohort members, and I have 5 minutes to talk. So I try not to talk too fast. So really high level, here's what I'm going to talk about today. I took a 590 course with Dr. Louie. I titled the class Scholastic Writing. And the second presentation I'm going to give today is on comparing the Senior Design Capstone Project to the onboarding process in industry. So the first one, so my Scholastic Writing class was actually a very, very good class for me. I think that it was one of those classes that really did it for me in terms of being comfortable being an engineering education researcher. When I first started, I mean, like everyone probably knows by now, because I think I sang it like a song. All I did was write emails before I came here for over 11 years. So to be able to write scholastically was pretty, I mean, it was very intense for me. I think everybody felt it in this room. So with that, I took 2 credits with Dr. Louie, and we used 2 books, and we had weekly exercises, and the beauty of this class was the paper, actually. And then I have a final paper that I'm going to write, or a paper that I'm going to rewrite based on all my learnings in the class. And my takeaways from the class is really to just begin with old information and with new information, transitioning. I also learned about paragraphs and how every paragraph is supposed to make a point, and also being able to acknowledge your opponent in your writing, because it actually makes for a good writing instead of just, you know, like reading. I feel that that part was actually good for me, and hopefully I'm not overusing it now. It's a good strategy to write papers. And the last piece is to answer the so what question at the end of at least your introduction. And actually, at every point of your paper, you need to be able to answer that so what question. And with that, this class is actually going to be offered next spring. Honestly, if you're going to be taking history and philosophy, you're going to be writing a lot. I recommend that you take this course to kind of complement what you're going to be doing in history and philosophy. Because for me personally, it really, really helped me. I'm a more comfortable writer. I think I have more confidence in my writing, and it shows in people's comments on what I've been writing lately. So I kind of have a little bit of a boost there. So I'm really excited about this. So thanks, Dr. Lee. The second topic that I'm going to talk about today is the my research that I took with Dr. Opes. Unfortunately, he's not here today, he's somewhere in India. It's on comparing the Senior Design Capstone Project with to the onboarding process in industry. Now, I picked this topic because it has a lot of implications for both the academic setting and also for industry. So the backstory to this is, I mean, if you're in a design environment of industry, 70% of your life cycle, I mean, your product cycle cost is in design. So a lot of times companies do have some form of onboarding process. A lot of them come in something called the rotational onboarding process. It's called so many different things. I'm going to present something bigger about that later on next semester. But what I wanted to do with this paper is to look into these, it's there. These 3 research questions. How do industry onboarding programs use design? And also, how does the onboarding process in industry compare to the capstone design projects that we do for our undergraduate students when they, in their final years, when they do their senior design project? And what attributes of the onboarding programs in industry actually relates to what we do here in the universities that actually compare to what they do in industry. So what I did was so first of all, I actually started off with like 12 schools. Now I'm down to 10 schools. And I'll give you the story on that later. So I'm looking into 4 specific programs, 4 companies. The methodology that I'll be using is case study. The methods that I'm using is data analysis and interviews. So when I first, actually let me go back. So when I first started, I actually started off with just data analysis, and I was going to complement it with interviews. But then while conducting the research, I realized that I needed to do more interviews, and I'll explain why. So these are the 3 main things that I focused on in my research in terms of what are the elements of the onboarding process in industry. And with that, 3 of them are related to what we do here in the university setting. So the fourth one is company culture, which obviously